Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today, including Elliotte Friedman standing by in Florida, are sponsored by Basant Motors. It's March Mayhem at Basant. All month long, choose either no GST, 4.99% financing on 2020 or newer vehicles, or a $2,000 trade-in bonus. Get all the info at Basant Motors, BASANTmotors.com. As we head down to Del Boca Vista in Florida. NHL GM meetings going on down there, and Elliotte's there. Elliotte, thanks for doing this. How are you?
Do you want to see my pen that writes upside down, Donnie?
Oh, yes, perfect.
Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There we go. There it is.
Yeah. Perfect. Hey, other than the pen that writes upside down, what are the major issues the GMs are tackling in Florida?
I don't know if there's anything enormous, Donnie, but I'll tell you one thing that I think they're going to talk about in their bigger group tomorrow is whether or not video review should be expanded to include puck over glass. That definitely seems to be something that is. So basically what happens is on Sunday, the senior group of GMs meet. That's Doug Armstrong, Kevin Cheveldayoff, Steve Yzerman, Ken Holland, Lou Lamoriello, and I hope I'm not missing anybody. And they kind of go over the agenda. And today there's usually what they call the breakout groups, which I think is 4 groups of 8. And they kind of talk about it, what they want to discuss, and they bring it to the bigger group tomorrow. And just Colin Campbell met with us about an hour and a half ago. And basically what he said is that appears to be the one thing that gained some conversation is, should we review for puck over the glass? And my personal opinion is yes. I've always felt that they should review this play. I think it's way too fast to make a determination a lot of times in real time. I think one of the things I think they don't like is they don't want too many more whistles in the game. So that's always a question. And I think there's also going to be a debate here on whether or not that should be just for puck over glass that's actually called. Do you review it and decide if it's a penalty or not? And maybe not. If it's not called, then maybe you don't use it then. I think that's still to be determined. But if there's anything here today on Monday that looks like it's going to gain some traction, it looks like it could be puck over the glass that should be under video review, which is something I do agree with.
Elliotte, an issue that came up, I don't know, a few weeks ago that I believe the GMs were planning on tackling that a lot of people have a problem with is the regroup 3-on-3 overtime. Where are we with that?
It doesn't sound like it's going anywhere, Donnie.
Okay.
I think they said something like I don't have the exact number with me in front of me, but it's something like 70% of overtime games end before the shootout. I think they kind of like it that way. I think one of the problems, Don, is if you get into a situation like, okay, well, what do you do? What's the solution? And one of the things I really do know is they don't want any more whistles. They really don't want any more whistles. And I think one of the things they've been talking about is with this regroup, is it better to accept the regroup for what it is, knowing that eventually we get back to the 2-on-1s and the good chances and the exciting hockey? Do we just put up with that for a couple seconds while the lines change, or do we have to blow it dead and do something? And I think they prefer option A over option B.
Right.
It certainly didn't sound like today, Don, that was going anywhere.
Elliotte, let's talk a little bit about Vancouver. What are your thoughts on Hronek and his new contract? Can they get it done? I have to ask you. What are you hearing about Hronek and his new deal?
First of all, Rick, what did you think of my impersonation of you? Was that good?
Yeah.
It was not bad.
Okay, so look, I think this. I think that there is a deal to be made here. It's probably I look at it this way. For me, the sweet spot there, maximum, is probably in the 7.5 range. If Hronek is dead set above that, I could see it being a real problem. But I think there's a deal to be made there. To me, if you can get the deal done with Pettersson, then you can get the deal done with just about anybody, really, after everything they went through. So, I think if Hronek is happy in Vancouver.
This doesn't look good for us.
Cut him off.
Communication problems at
Somewhere in this.
Oh, there we are. We got him back?
Okay.
Sorry, Elliot.
Yeah, sorry
lost
about
you for a
that.
second. No problem.
Go ahead, Elliot.
No worries. I think. Look, I think if he wants to be a Canuck, and they want him to be a Canuck, there's a deal to be made. And I have no reason to believe at this point in time, Rick or Don, that he does not want to be a Vancouver Canuck. So I think there's a deal to be made. That's number one. Number two, look, it depends on what the number is. I think if we're talking max 7.5, I think there's absolutely a deal to be made there. I think if we're going higher there, then we could have a problem. But as far as I sit here today with you on this Monday, March the 18th, I have no reason to believe that a deal here is impossible to do. I think there's a deal to be made, and until I have reason to believe otherwise, I'm going to keep moving in that direction.
Elliotte, you had some interesting stuff on the Arizona Coyotes' future last week. Would there be any talks there in Florida about the Coyotes and their future, and give us an update?
Honestly, the commissioner is going to speak on Wednesday. He usually speaks on the last day of these meetings, Rick, and that he's the one who will address this. I can tell you this, after working on it for the past 2-3 weeks, there are a lot of people that don't want to talk about it, really don't want to talk about it. Bill Armstrong, who's the GM of the Coyotes, he's here and he did a few interviews today, but he made it very clear that's a subject he does not want to discuss. And I think the reason is these negotiations are very delicate. I think they're dealing with governments, you're dealing with the Coyotes, you're dealing with the futures of players. I think everybody wants to make sure that they don't want to say the wrong thing. So I think the team wants to stay in Arizona. In a perfect world, the league would like them to stay in Arizona. But the bottom line is we're not going to have this auction until June. And I think everybody's saying, okay, we have to make sure that if something goes sideways or for whatever reason the Coyotes don't win this auction, that we have a plan in place, because what everybody agrees on is the status quo cannot continue. So I think you're seeing them work on a second option, which would be relocation, likely, if the Coyotes can't pull this off. And so I think you're seeing both those things being worked on at the same time. We're at the fork in the road. There's two paths. Path one is they win the auction, they stay in Arizona. Path two is, for whatever reason, they can't win this. Where are we going? And that's, I think, where we are, and they're working on both at the same time.
Elliot, one more, if you don't mind. The Canucks have lost their last two games in disappointing fashion at home after a lot of rest. And this really goes back to after the All-Star break. They just haven't looked the same overall since then. Do they, to you right now, look like one of the best teams in the NHL, which standing-wise they are?
I still think they're one of the best teams in the league, Don. The one thing you have to remember is that they were no team went as long without going on a slump this year as Vancouver did. So you're going to get this. I'm just not a guy who panics that quickly. Now, I see what Tocchet is doing. He's trying to get that sense of urgency going in them. It's just hard to play 82 games like this. The one thing, but the one thing I definitely see is, Soucy's now back, so they're trying new pairings again. I like the idea of Myers-Soucy together. So they're trying new pairings again. And also, they still have had trouble finding the right spot for Lindholm. And I think that to me is one of the things that has kind of thrown the team off a bit, is they're trying to figure out where's the right spot for him to play. And I get a sense that once they figure that out, everything is going to look a lot better, because they're trying to make him look good. They're trying to jumpstart a lot of people around him. And I just think, for me, sometimes the deadline and the big acquisitions throw you off a bit. And I think that's happened in this case, particularly with Lindholm and where he should be in the lineup.
Okay, you know what I'm going to say now. Say hi to Jack Clumpus.
Jack Klompus has said that I cast an illegal vote in one of the, and I've been thrown off the property.
Yeah.
I violated proper procedure and I've been ejected.
Yeah, and don't even bring up the Cadillac. Thanks, Elliotte. Appreciate
All right, guys,
it.
have a great day. Take care.
Appreciate you getting the Seinfeld references as well.